There are a couple of principles that I hope would guide my decision as a man, as a husband, as a child of God. And I'm taking them from the leader of Job this morning. Big kudos to Jeff Surratt for some of what it is that I'm going to talk about. But first of all, I have to remember that as a child of God, my character is not determined by my circumstances. My character is not determined by my circumstances. The test for Job was whether he would be the same man when he lost everything. Would he be the same one as after he lost everything, after even when he was doing well? Are you the same when things are going well? Are you the same when things are going not well? And Job, everyone around Job was telling him that he should change, that he should react, that he should become a different man, that he should curse God and die. But Job refused to change. And my decision to slap a person in the face, to treat somebody like garbage, is not determined by the actions of them. I make that decision in the morning, before I put my pants on in the morning, or the last thing I do before I go to bed at night. The question I have to settle every single day is, what kind of person am I? Is my identity affected by what others do? Is my identity affected by outside sources? Secondly, my actions, not my words, reveal my faithfulness. A few minutes after slapping Chris Rock, Will Smith won the Oscar for Best Actor. And in his acceptance speech, he tearfully referred to a calling from God. He said he was getting wisdom from a mentor, purity of motive. Oh, can you guys hear me? Purity of motive. Whether it's right or not, the downside is that Will Smith's legacy will likely be he was the actor who slapped somebody at the Oscars. That we are seeing also this principle of my actions, not my words, reveal my faithfulness in the church all over the world right now. As almost every month a new revelation comes out about another well-known leader's abuse, a failure, a sin, men who have preached incredible messages and built renowned churches and organizations have their reputations absolutely ruined because actions do indeed speak louder than words. Job is known more for his actions than his words. His wife told him to curse God and die, but he did not. His friends told him to confess things that he never did, but he did not. Job struggled, but he never strayed. Job's character was built on a lifetime of actions. And at the end of his life, Job died surrounded by family and God's blessing. You know, thousands of years later, the traits associated with Job, it weren't bravado, weren't his preaching, not his leadership, but instead his faithfulness. It isn't fair to have a single moment of weakness likely turn your legacy into something you never wanted it to be. But when you choose to live your life in the public eye, we are held to a higher account. I pray that each of us, as well as will experience God's mercy and his grace. And that's where culture meets Jesus. Well, it is good to be together, isn't it? Man, missed you guys all in one room. We're still figuring out the kinks and the tweaks and the adjustments that need to happen as we're here. If you have an idea on how it is that we can make it better, idea on what it is that we can do to adjust it, to make it a place where maybe people who haven't been into church before, maybe a friend that you've been praying for a really long time, how do we make it a space that you feel comfortable inviting somebody who maybe has never been to church before into? Then let us know. Come speak to me. Come speak to somebody at a booth. Let us know how it is that we can make this spot better. Because this church, it began with a thought. What if we could just introduce people to Jesus? What if we could do things that would drop their tension just a little bit? What if we could introduce Jesus, the real Jesus, to people? Not the Jesus that we hear about through governments who blame wars on God. Not the Jesus that religion uses to control people. Not the Jesus that makes people do crazy things when really it's just them being crazy. What if we could introduce people to Jesus, the one who came to serve, the one who came to save, the one who came to love us, the Jesus who wants to launch us into a purpose that will make a difference and change the world, the one who wants to come alongside us and help us learn our identity as a child of God. Now, as a church, we've sometimes swayed into other things on Sunday mornings, but our goal is to focus on the main thing here Sunday mornings, introducing people to Jesus, helping them be loved, helping them become love, helping them do love, be like Jesus in all of his goodness. Today we're finishing up a series right now called The Fight of Your Life. How many of you have had a chance to attend and connect with us during one or two messages of Fight of Your Life? Okay. We've been talking about the things that we will have to battle against as Jesus followers, the things that we are going to have to work against, the things that are going to come at us in a variety of different ways, and challenging us to battle the things that are important. That there is a battle for our life, and we will get distracted, we will get busy, we will get taken out if we aren't willing to actually fight for these things. And so we're challenging people to fight for the things that God wants you battling for. Maybe go back online and check out some of the messages if you missed any of them prior. Today we're tackling the toughest fight of all, your thought life. Yay! Any of you ever struggle with unwanted thoughts? Any of you not raising your hands because you don't want other people to know? Okay. I grew up hearing this statement that people would make all the time. Change your thoughts and you'll change your world. And others would often object to that idea, saying, man, that's just too simplistic. It can't be that easy to change your life just by changing the way you think. And today, after a lot of years of working on putting this into practice, I would say to those who object to this idea, if you think it's easy to change your thoughts, you haven't tried it. Developing a new way of thinking is the hardest work that you will ever do. The problem is that most of us spend too much time engaged in the wrong type of thinking. Thinking is unlike any other discipline that we seek to master. It's not like requiring yourself to go to a gym once a day and then you're done. It's a checkbox for the day. I did it, way to go. No. Managing your thoughts is an every waking moment kind of work, and it's hard work. In the book, The Art of Letting Go, Richard Rohr, who quotes a clinical psychology study concluding that 90% of our thoughts are repetitive and negative in nature. 90%. In other words, we tend to rehash the same junky ideas over and over again and again, 24/7, over and over. We just think on those things that we're not supposed to be thinking about. And this isn't a new phenomenon. It's been going on since day one, which is why God tells us over and over and over again that we need to change the way we think. Right? The Apostle Paul says you're to be made new in the attitude of your mind. Ephesians 4:23. In other words, you need to learn to think a new way. He also said you can be transformed by the renewing of your mind, which is to say, change your thoughts, and you'll not only change your attitude, you'll change yourself. You'll experience true transformation. This all sounds really easy until you try it. The fact is that we are a people who are prone to negative thinking. It's part and parcel of our fallen nature, of the generational kind of dysfunction that has been passed down to us over and over and over again. The fact is that people are prone to negative thinking. One psychologist describes the brain as Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive experiences. Now, this may be our nature, but we don't have to live that way. And we shouldn't live that way. Because negative thinking, we all know, is not good for us. You've likely heard of the placebo effect, where you take a sugar pill, and if you think it will help you get well, then it's very possible that you will get well. And in those same critical research studies, they've also identified what is called the nocebo effect, that people with negative expectations about their treatment are more likely to experience negative outcomes. Your life can either be shaped and molded and formed by your natural inclination towards the world's rotten and negative thinking that is all around us, or your life can be transformed by a new way of thinking, a healthy, good, loving way of thinking. I'm not sure what your faith background is, but real transformation, it starts with Jesus. Albert Einstein said, "The world we have created is a byproduct of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking." Whether you struggle a little or a lot in this area of taking control of your thought life, you can be sure that we all have a little room for improvement, that we can all do just a little bit better. And so for the next few minutes, let's look at strategies that you can use in order to change the way that you think for the better. And the first strategy is be mindful of what you let in. Be mindful of what you decide to let in the old trap. What you repeatedly put into your mind will shape your thoughts, and inevitably it will affect your emotions, and as a result of that, it will affect your actions. We all know that it goes head, heart, hands. For this reason, you need to be ruthlessly selective with what it is that you allow to influence your thinking. 1 Peter 1:13 tells us, prepare your minds for action. The battle for living well begins in the mind, and it begins with how you think before you begin to act. And so you have to be ready to deal with the outside distractions that are going to want to seek to set you off course. They're going to want to steer you in a direction that you don't want to go. Hebrews says, we must pay more careful attention, therefore, to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away. We need to make it a point to focus on the truth of God's word and what it is that he says about us, the message of the gospel for us, rather than to dwell on the supposed wisdom of the world. Because when we fail to focus on God's truth, we're at risk of drifting away into lies and into negativity. Please be super mindful of what it is that you allow to provoke your thinking. Oh, I hadn't thought of that before. Oh, I hadn't looked into this before. Oh, this is a new truth I didn't know. Be careful what it is that you allow in. Make it a point to fill your mind with uplifting, empowering, God-honoring content throughout the day. Garbage in, garbage out, they say. Good in, hopefully good out. This doesn't mean you bury your head in the sand and ignore what it is that's going on in the world. No, it means that you just aren't swayed by every new thing that comes your way. You hang your hat on the word of God and the uplifting message of the gospel of Jesus. I would recommend, I did this week. I hadn't done it in a really long time. I would recommend for those of you who are on YouTube, go through your subscribed list this week and delete some of the creators that don't cause you to think of the good things. Be mindful of what it is that you're putting in. Also, secondly, make some thoughts off limits. Make some thoughts off limits. When it comes to certain thoughts and ideas, you can decide, I'm going to refuse to go there. Because when you dwell on certain thoughts, it affects your soul. This is your heart, your emotions, your will, and ultimately, it affects your actions. This is the point that Jesus was trying to make in Matthew 5:28 when he said, I tell you the truth, that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in her heart, in his heart. That thinking the wrong way about others will wreak havoc in our spiritual life. For this reason, it would serve every person here today to decide once and for all, I will not entertain sexual thoughts about anyone who isn't my spouse. Yeah? Turn to somebody and say, that sounds like a good idea. It's awkward talking about sex and then turning to someone and talking, isn't it? I will not entertain those thoughts. There are other kinds of thoughts and ideas that need to be kept off limits as well. For example, Psalm 73 says, my feet had almost slipped. I'd nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. What's he saying? He's saying, don't think envious thoughts. Don't put yourself in somebody else's shoes and want to be there. Dwelling on jealous ideas. Put that kind of thinking aside. Make it off limits or you will slip in life. Also, Jesus said on multiple different occasions, do not worry. Turn to somebody beside you and say, don't worry. Yeah, it's a command from Jesus. If you're worrying, you should make it off limits. He also said, do not be afraid. Turn to somebody and say, do not be afraid. That's also a command from Jesus. Oftentimes we make the mistake of believing that worry and fear are emotions, but they're not. They lead to negative emotions, but worry always starts in the thought life. Anxiety begins with what you think. If you want to create a personal life environment free from worry, fear, and anxiety, put all of your worrisome, fearful, anxious thoughts in the off-limits file folder and then seal it. That I just choose not to think about this. There's a sign that I've seen multiple times. I saw it when we were in Kelowna a couple of weeks ago on streets and alleys, various locations, multiple different cities. And the sign says, don't even think about parking here. Don't even think about it. I don't know who came up with the wording for this, but it's brilliant. Makes absolute sense. If you don't want people to park somewhere, tell them not even to think about parking, because when I see no parking, I think about, I wonder how it is that I could do that, though. Or if it says reserved for so-and-so, how will they know that I'm not so-and-so? And I think of ways that I could park there. But this sign says, don't even think about parking there, and I can go, okay. Now, the point that I'm making somewhat facetiously is that we need to take some hard-nosed approaches to certain areas and temptations in our lives, where we need to say, as soon as it pops into our head, don't even think about it. Some ideas, some thoughts need to be off limits for you forever. Now, of course, people will say, well, I have no control over what it is that I think. Thoughts just pop into my head, and there's nothing I can do about it. And in response to that objection, there's a quote that has been attributed to Martin Luther, though there's some question of whether or not the quote really belongs to him. But whoever said it, man, it's a good quote to keep in mind. So here it is. You can't keep the birds from flying over your head, but you can prevent them from building a nest. You don't have to dwell all day, every day, on every single thought that you have. It's true that thoughts will pop into your head from time to time, like some kind of like when you go onto a web page and suddenly it goes dark and you're like, I just wanted to read the web page, but that thing popped up. You just click off of it and you can get to the material that you want to. Same with a thought that comes in your mind. Maybe you just need to quickly click off of it and distract yourself with something else. Swat the bird away. distract yourself to a new thinking place. How? Can I recommend this? Make a to-think list. Make a to-think list. I would venture to say that everyone here has some kind of working to-do list in their life. This list determines how it is that you schedule your day. Maybe it's from your calendar, or maybe it's a day planner. You're that kind of person. Or maybe you can just keep track of everything that you need to do in your head. But there is a to-do list going on for most people throughout the day. But no doubt, every person understands the concept of this. What if you were to think and create a to-think list? What if you were to itemize several items and make it a point to think on those things throughout the day? What if you were to ruminate on them instead of the negative thing that pops into your head? And when that negative thing that's on your to not think about list pops in, you instead think about your to-think list. What if you were to say, for example, you know what, this morning on my walk, I'm going to think about all the reasons I love the people who are in my life. On my way to work today, I'm going to challenge myself to remember 3 times that God has answered my prayers. During lunch, I'm going to think about the most fun that our family ever had together. Or I'm going to think about the best qualities of my spouse today. Or I'm going to think about 5 amazing gifts that God has given me that I certainly didn't deserve. And on and on and on. You create a to-think list towards the good. What if you were to decide to become proactive in your thinking? To ask the Holy Spirit to maybe reveal some things that you're supposed to ponder on. Can you imagine what will happen? I'll tell you what will happen. It will revolutionize the way that you experience the world. It will absolutely change your outlook on life. It will turn your emotions right side up and put your natural-born negative bias in the garbage where it belongs. When you change your thoughts, you change the way you experience the world. You change your outlook on life. And when circumstances around you aren't what it is that you want them to be, when you get your thought life in order ahead of time and you're able to step out into the truth, then the lies that come your way will be deflective. When the negative worry that comes your way will be deflected. Because you'll never get past the filter of faith that you put up in front of yourself, rather than the filter of fear, which is inherent in us. You know, I didn't come up with this idea of a to-think list on my own. I got it from the Apostle Paul, as we heard it earlier. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely and admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. He's saying create a to-think list. Why? What's the result? The God of peace will be with you. So will you actually do it, though? I would challenge you, there's pieces of paper around you, there's pens. What if you decided to make a list of the thoughts that you refuse to entertain? You got real. That regular cyclical negative garbage that keeps popping into your head. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I'm sick and I've got this? What if? You know the negative thought that wreaks havoc in your life. Don't allow it to lurk in the shadows any longer. Call them by name. Let them know that you know what they are. Write their name down so you can come back. Let the birds know you're swatting them away. Which brings us to the second part of the challenge. Create your to-think list on that page. It's around you there. If you don't like the old-fashioned pen and paper, pull out your phone. Write it down. Itemize those thoughts and ideas that are worthy of your attention, things that are true, noble, right, pure, admirable, excellent. Be as specific as possible as well. Say, these are the good things that I will take time every day to think about. When you change your thoughts, you will change the way you experience the world. And some might be asking, can it really be this easy? No, it's not easy. It's tough. That's why I'm getting you to write it down. Because there are a bunch of you who are already going, maybe I'll get to that later. It's tough. This is the fight of your life. Your thought life chooses how it is that you engage everywhere in the world. And many who try this idea fail and then give up. That's why you encounter so many pessimistic and miserable Christians. It's so much easier to think that in the future you'll think about your thinking instead of doing it now. And as a result of that, all these bitter Christians walk around indulging in their sinful nature, hanging on to their old way of thinking, believing that in the future they'll get to that. Man, you guys, this is the fight of your life. Will you fight?